I feel obligated to warn you that some of the sensations, some of the physical reaction which the actors on the screen will feel, will also be experienced for the first time in motion picture history by certain members of this audience.
Every horror movie, good or bad, tells a story. But every horror movie you've ever seen also has a story, sometimes scarier and more dreadful than what's on screen. Join Sinful Cuts with your hosts, Sean O'Connor and Shannon Bushman-Montalbano, as they open the book on these horror movies and tell their story chapter by chapter from start to finish. The good, the bad, the laughter, the tears, the celebration, and the heartache. Join us as we harness the lightning and resurrect these tales one last time as Sinful Cuts presents
2024's Foil.
Hey Cinners, I'm Shannon.
And I'm Sean.
And we are Sinful Cuts. Got some guests with us today. Sean, who do we have?
We have got Devin O'Rourke and Zach Green, and these are the co-stars of the film Foil, which you can find on Amazon Prime, and you can find on Apple. I watched it on Apple, and I have to say, I don't want to put the film in a box. It's a buddy comedy. It's very heartfelt. It's also sci-fi. It brushes up against a little bit of horror. You know, I mean, there's a lot going on there. But I think at the core of it, it's a really heartfelt movie about a friendship that maybe has gone awry and could possibly come back on the right track, but we don't know.
A rekindling bromance, if you will. At least that's how I kind of saw it.
Without getting given too much away, because I want you guys to talk about your film, but I will say it's incredibly well shot. It's incredibly well acted. It's funny as hell. So again, I want you guys to talk about your film. So I guess first and foremost, we'll start with, would you guys mind introducing yourselves? Zach, we'll start with you and just give a little bit of background, and then Devin, we'll kick it over to you.
Right on. Love it. Yeah. Hey, folks. I'm Zach Green, director, co-writer, co-star of Foil. This is my directorial feature debut. Acted in some features up to this point and directed some shorts and whatnot, but first time dipping a toe into behind the camera for a feature. So it's been a huge learning experience.
Zach, I'm going to call you out on one thing, though. You're being humble. You're a director, but I think you have to give credit to your accolades. You're an award-winning director.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Officially, as of this film, we are now, award-winning filmmakers here.
This is how I know you haven't gone full Hollywood, because you didn't even bring it up. You know, we're going to cash you in like 3-4 years from now, and you're going to be, oh, well, I won this award and that award. We got you now nice and humble. I love it.
I need enough to fully garnish. So
there you go. There you go. Devin, how about yourself?
Devin O'Rourke. I play Rex in the movie. I co-wrote the script with Zach, and I edited the film as well. And this is also really definitely the biggest film project I've been a part of. And it's about as small as you can get for a feature. So, but still the biggest thing that I've definitely acted in. It's the first time I've acted in anything where it was more than a day of shooting. I'd only done short films. Yeah, and the same actually goes for I directed some shorts and wrote some shorts from college until now, and they were all basically like one day, one location, like very, very small. And the last one Zach and I did together before we decided to do Foil. So yeah, it was definitely a lot, and the desert made things harder. But it was, looking back now, it was hard, but it was very fun. So
how long did it take to shoot this film?
Oh yeah,
I believe it was 21 shoot days total.
Okay, so almost a month.
Yeah.
2 weeks in the desert.
Broke it up.
2 weeks in the desert, and then a few days in LA. We shot the first 20 minutes actually about 5 months before the rest of the movie. We shot basically driving out in the Bronco section. We shot that in Joshua Tree in September of 21, and then we shot most of the movie like once we're out in the desert in Lancaster,
Oh, cool.
which is way north of LA, like off of out in the middle of nowhere. They shot the scene from Independence Day where Will Smith punches the alien was shot there. The same place we shot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Welcome to Earth.
I remember that scene well.
that was so like February 22, 2 weeks out there. That was the main body of the film. And then just a few days back in LA for the bar scene and the video store scene. So
Very cool. Very
Devin, I'm
cool.
going to circle back though. I can't let this pass by. So you really you hadn't acted in anything more than a day's worth of work prior to this film?
Yeah, no, I've never, I mean, I've always loved acting and going back to school, like studied a bit, but it's never been my main career. I've mostly, been focused on editing, and then, writing and occasionally acting in short films, but I've never been, like a full-time actor. So,
You would not know it. You're fantastic in the film. I cannot believe that you didn't have tons of experience beforehand. You're very, very good in this movie.
thank you. And
Yeah,
it was,
you guys are definitely natural.
there was definitely a lot of anxiety on my part going in because the other three main guys are very seasoned and especially most of my scenes are with Chris Stubeck, who's just a veteran actor who's been in 100 movies. And
Yeah, he's great.
I was really, really nervous, like not only like can I hang in there and performance wise, but also like how do you guys do this, like what is the process like? 'Cause like I said,
Yeah.
I'd only done like basically scenes, like I'd never been out on a set for that long, and I didn't really know like how other people like to work or like what's the right thing to do basically. So
Yeah, and you were a main character, so
yeah,
both of your faces were pretty much the entirety of the
yeah,
film.
props to Zach.
So that was probably a big jump.
Props
for
to
you
Zach
as
for
Just
well.
so Zach
me.
doesn't feel bad about himself, Zach, you're okay in it.
He's
No,
all right.
just
Yeah.
you're fantastic as well. I mean, guys, honestly, if you weren't so charismatic and we didn't believe in the relationship and the friendship, the movie would fail, and it certainly doesn't. You really believe in the friendship that you two have, and the kind of trials and tribulations of it from start to finish. You guys sell it beautifully.
Yeah,
I
the
can't
soul of
believe.
it. It's a buddy flick more than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Like it rests entirely on that. Yeah.
I have a question. So when you guys were writing the story for this bromance or what have you, whatever your verbiage is, did writing it actually come from kind of like a personal place at all? Like not necessarily between the two of you, but maybe like or the typicals, because you talk about how in the beginning how you're coming back to like, oh yeah, we're going to our high school reunion, type of a thing, and spoiler alert, I didn't go to mine either.
I didn't either.
Go to mine.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't do anything interesting at like going out into the desert and coming across a couple of aliens, but
Yeah.
Yeah, talk
But,
a little bit about what the idea was, because you both co-wrote the film. So what
yeah.
what sparked the idea?
I'll let Dev take it because he had the
Um,
original sort of.
So yeah, like
log line.
I had the original idea of two guys finding a piece of foil, a weird piece of foil in the desert, and arguing about what to do with it. My early version was like basically more like a play in the sense that it played out in real time, and it was more just like of like a chamber piece where it's just like basically like a one act play. And when I brought it to Zach, he was like, all right, that's a cool kind of starting point, but I think we can expand this and make it more complex and make it funny. I think my version was like very serious. And so it was COVID, it was lockdown, and we really just had nothing else to do besides just talk about what, foil
Okay.
could be. We had just made a short film called Right On, like right before lockdown, and finished it. Realized we worked well together, and also, kind of had the same philosophy about how to go about making films, which is more about like exploration, like through improv, like having that inform the script, but also like just a certain looseness about like not being too tied to like the specific lines, but spirit of the line, and kind of like really just trying, the goal being like to get something that feels natural and authentic. And so the short film that we did is all talk, is all dialogue, and we knew that we could do that. So we thought, okay, how can we
Nice.
bring like the dialogue sort of style, but make it sci-fi, like bring it to a sci-fi sort of genre. In terms of like, was it personal? Like, I think inevitably, like whatever you write, you're going to put yourself into it, like for me, um, you know, there's the theme of like sort of friendship, obviously, and loyalty, and like how you can kind of just drift apart from your friend, and it can be hard to reconnect. But also there's like, we talked about like, what does foil mean, like the different meanings of the word foil, and there's the literal foil, there's characters who are foils of each other, um foiled plans, and so as we started to talk about those things, I think that's when we started to figure out, okay, like what are like sort of the themes, the personal themes of the movie and the characters. And that was working off of the word foil, I think, kind of unlocked a lot of that stuff for us.
Yeah.
Became the magic word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Zach, how was it for you directing and starring at the same time? Because I'm getting agita thinking about that.
Funny enough, I despite being a filmmaker and working in film, I actually feel like my weakest attribute is my like visual sensibility. And so whenever I've made films in the past, when I hire a DP, I tell that like, you are the director of photography. Like, I am not gonna, I want us to be on the same page about how we're gonna shoot it and the framing and whatnot, but I also want it to be like your vision that's coming through. Like, you're the expert. I don't know how to light anything. I frankly skipped most of those classes in college. Like, so our DP, Jordan Black, who I did go to college with, just completely put all of our trust into him. Yeah. And,
the shots are incredible.
We're in the, thank you. And we're in the desert and we have no money. So we don't have a video village or anything anyway. So it wasn't that big of a deal that I was in the scenes, because there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to sit there and examine every single take to make sure that it's the way I think it ought to be. So even in scenes I wasn't in, the vibe was usually at the end of a take, you look to Jordan and say, did we get it? And I would,
yeah,
we got it or not. And if we didn't, okay, we'll do it again. And if not, like, if he said yes after like the second take, we were confident. We just move on. Like, we needed that time. We had to move.
Break it down and move on. Great.
You just did the gladiator thing. Like, that's a method we did.
Performance-wise, we feel great. And then he has to sadly go the camera bump. Like,
but it was really only like one or two, maybe three takes, per setup. And because like we, low budget, tight schedule,
keep it moving,
crazy weather, like just getting it was, a big question mark. Like, are we actually going to get the movie? Like, are we going to get what we need for it to actually make sense? And like Zach and I kind of joked about like, oh, we're going to get back to LA and realize that we completely forgot to shoot, a scene or something, and it'll just like the movie won't make sense. And like, there's no going back out there, with the full crew. Like, we had,
that's it.
Like this time, like this block of time to make it. And if we didn't get it, like, I don't know what we would have done. So like, you know, thinking about like, is it good or not? Are we getting it? Was like almost secondary to just like, did we actually like shoot it? You know, like, is it
Yeah.
actually like in the can?
Do you have the
Yeah.
story?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is it?
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. Do you have all the pieces of the puzzle? Yeah,
right.
for sure.
And
I get
yes,
it.
You know,
big props to Jordan because you know, in scenes that we were both in, and even you know, scenes that one of us was in, like he was really, you know, our eyes and in the whole camera department, really. But yeah, he became sort of, you know, a de facto director when, you know, we were in front of the camera, so he was
totally.
huge.
Now,
Very cool.
the desert lends itself to these beautiful vistas, and you captured all of that. There are just some Jordan did, you know, he earned his paycheck because there are just some gorgeous shots in this movie. But you know, Shannon and I have no experience whatsoever shooting in the desert. What was that like? It's got to be
Mm-mm.
incredibly challenging.
It was super, super intense and
Oh,
brutal weather-wise.
you
The
frozen,
first
Zach?
half was.
He's frozen.
Oh, am
Oh,
I
you're back.
frozen? Can you hear
Oh
me?
no, you're good. You're good here.
Okay, let me check.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm on the good internet. I should be. Okay. Um, yeah, no, it was brutal. It was crazy. We broke it up where the first half of the shoot out there was the day stuff, and the latter half was the night stuff. And it was February, March, and so it wasn't like peak summer desert, but it was still hot. It was definitely still hot. And the biggest thing we didn't expect, because this didn't happen any time of the times we scouted the location, was like just gale force winds, just wind
Oh,
so windy
Oh.
um, during the day. So we were, trying to act with sand in our nose and our eyes and our mouths. The sound guys giving us these looks of like it's a coin flip if this is like even usable
yeah,
sound.
we're picking up anything. Yeah, we're
Oh
Then
man.
sanding all the equipment. Oh, what a nightmare!
Then you
Oh.
start factoring in that out of nowhere it starts snowing out there. Like in Lancaster, it snowed 2 of the days that we were out there. We had to cancel a full day of shooting. We were already so tightly scheduled that like losing a full day already felt like basically a death stroke at that point. But then we had to that's why there's snow in the movie. We just had to write it in.
I was
I
just
love
gonna
that though.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna say, yeah, like was that like then just like thrown in? Because I was hysterical laughing at that part when you're just like, what the fuck is it snowing now? I'm like,
your
that's
character is like,
I
what is happening here? Yeah,
Yes.
I was totally gonna ask you, oh, how did you get that shot? Because that's like one of my favorites. I was hysterical laughing.
Well,
That's
Real to hear
hilarious that it was
it
natural.
actually was sleeting slash
Holy
snowing.
shit.
It didn't show up as well in the actual shot as we thought it would, so we did enhance it in VFX. But
Mhm.
Wow.
Zach was really getting hammered with sleet,
pelted.
and
Like
Yeah,
hail and stuff.
it
Wow.
was
basically just
becoming extremely
full
cold. But you know, like
yeah.
we were able to sort of justify it in the sense that it's like a magical vortex. We're kind of like in a Narnia kind of situation where things
Yeah,
could
yeah.
theoretically, but luckily it's a sci-fi movie where we can, you know, create the rules.
Yep.
Yeah,
That was utterly brilliant on your part. It was like I said, I had no idea. I was literally going to ask. I'm like, wow, I'm like they must have shot that like on a set or something, creating snow. Holy shit! I'm like baffled by this.
It was that moment where it was sleeting so much because this was at the tail end of the day shoots, so maybe like second or third to last day shoot, and it's enough that whatever we were shooting at that time that day, we just had to call it off. I think it was a scene with me and Rambo, and so everyone got to go back to their trailers or go home. Like the day was wrapped, but it was like one of those things of like we have to shoot something we
Yeah.
need to do something with this time. And then also sort of turning once again to Jordan and Joe, our first AC, just sort of asking like, can the camera like handle this? Like, can we sleed on this camera? Like, is that have like
We're,
crazy housing
we're,
or anything?
we're gonna
And then,
find out.
yeah, so we did kind of flip the coin on that as well. It's like, hope the camera like survives this because we're shooting something.
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
it's a great scene in the movie. It really is. So,
That's
could you
amazing.
guys talk about some of the influences that you brought to the film? Other films that may have helped to create the story visually, or the actual story that you two wrote.
I mean, I think one that we've really settled on that just seems to hit the buddy dynamic really well is Tremors, of like the
Oh
Kevin
yeah.
Red Ward dynamic. Just seems to have a similar, like, it's not totally screwball, it's not too serious, but it's like, you know, some nice, you still like are rooting for them and believe in their relationship in a way that feels like it's driving everything. So that, just in that way, and like, not to mention that it's like a desert crazy like alien movie, but
Yeah, for
although,
sure.
as you know, in the movie, you could argue they're not aliens but terrestrial beings. Um, but yeah, that's one that always comes up for me. What do you think, Dev? Comes
Yeah,
up
I
for
mean,
you?
I just there's buddy movies that I love, like Swingers, Sideways,
Mm,
like
I love
California Split to
Sideways.
go way back.
Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, so I guess like that is where it I think it started as like, okay, this is what because my previous short films were buddy stuff as well, and it's like I kind of, this is what I feel like I can write, and that was sort of like the starting point. And then when thinking about the sci-fi of it, it's like, all right, like, you know, what, this is kind of new territory, you know, in terms of like sci-fi direct references. You know, They Live, like we see the DVD and the VHS, Dexter holding the copies of They Live at the beginning, and you know, that's one that we thought about specifically, especially, you know, not to get too spoilery, but the glasses and They Live, you know, show you a different reality than what you see when you're not wearing them, and that sort of becomes a device in ours. Um,
Mhm.
you know, so we thought about that. You know, The Thing with there's a nod to The Thing with you know,
The blood test.
the camera test and versus the blood test, and The Thing. We even have a little clip of that in the flashback sequence that where Rambo's telling his story, and they're in like the trailer watching movies. There's what's actually a recreation of that scene from The Thing where Kurt Russell, you know, puts the little, you know, the conductor in the blood petri dish, and the monster pops out. Like, we actually see that clip, and
Mhm.
you know, that was an inspiration for a whole scene that we have with the camera towards the end. So those were, you know, specific things that we thought about. You know, in terms of the tone, like Zach said, it's not too there's a lot of silliness in it, right? But there's other sincere moments, and I think we were
Yeah.
trying to go for
Absolutely.
a balance of things. Like, you know, we weren't afraid to like have some dumb, silly stuff, but we also wanted it to have, you know, sincere heart. And so that's kind of the hardest thing, is like understanding what the tone of the film is sometimes. But
Yeah. And the balance. Sure.
yeah, but I think you know, we wanted there to be a balance. So hopefully that comes through.
No. Yeah,
I
no,
walked away from
it
the
totally did.
film, and I think Shannon and I talked about it. You know, we both thought it was very heartfelt. It really was. I mean, there's trust me, you guys know there's tons of silly moments in the film, and they work. It's very funny. But I walked away from the film feeling, yeah, this is a sweet film. I hope you both don't mind me saying that. It
Oh, I
is.
love that.
It's a sweet film. I mean, it really is about this friendship that, you know, in the beginning, I think we all have friends like that. You lose touch. You know, there's like you know, it's just it's on the periphery. You know, it's not right there in the center where it used to be. And then you're trying to get that back. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you're just growing into two completely different people. And I think that's the stakes that you have throughout the film, is that you never really know, hey, are these guys actually going to be friends by the end of this movie? Is it going to click? And I'm not going to spoil anything. People have to watch it, you know. But I just felt like it worked very well, the relationship that you two have, and it felt real, even though the movie has some very you know, far out things happen, and some, you know, some broad comedy, but I thought the heart of it was very real. So I
Cool.
just wanted to commend you both on that. It came through very clear.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure. There's again, I'm not going to spoil anything either, but there is a scene where things look like they're about to go very south, and I got very upset.
Yeah.
Actually, I got very very upset. But then it comes together. But
All
it
right.
was yeah, definitely
I've,
fun.
I've got to ask at this point. So the film is shot. It's arduous. You got to shoot in the desert, but you lived. You made it. You've got a film. Devin, you're editing. You're putting it together. You're creating this story. I mean, Zach, of course, you guys are collaborating, and it's done. Our listeners would love to know at that point what happens, because then you're submitting it to film festivals. What's that like, and what's the anxiety level of that?
It's it is sort of a we tried to just do the big numbers game. I think there's a lot of folks that might say, only submit to Sundance and South by and blah, and if you don't get into this top 5 or 10, it's not worth your time, which, whatever, could argue that. But this being our first feature and it being such a specific tone of kind of like lowercase m midnight movie, it felt really important that we take the time to try and find the audience and find people that totally get what we're doing. And we of course we submitted to Sundance and all those big ones. Why
Sure.
wouldn't
Yeah.
And shocker, didn't get into those, but I think grand total, like, we went hard. We submitted to, I think, 50 or 60 festivals total.
Okay.
And by the end of the run, I believe we got into 10, which, when you
Great.
That's
when
great.
yeah, like one out of 6 is like actually a pretty decent clip. What is funny is that it took a while for that first one to fall, because with festival premiere status, especially for features, that like really matters to festivals. They'll be a little more lax with a short, but with a feature, they love to at least say, if not world premiere, then US premiere, if not US premiere, regional premiere, or and so you have to kind of pick and choose who you're initially submitting to, because you want to try and make that first world premiere festival as splashy as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was kind of a hard game for us to play at first, of deciding, okay, we like this one, but are we going to circle back next year to submit to it, or is it worth doing right now? And we kind of, honestly, we lucked out. There was Dances with Films ended up being our world premiere here in LA, like really awesome, like, upper mid-tier fest, and
Chinese
they have
theater.
a midnight section with Chinese theater premiere.
Well, I've
And
seen the pictures. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
IMDb. You guys are, you two models are there in your fine duds, and it looks
Yeah.
great. Looked like it was a lot of fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, about
it was fun.
the festival process, I think there's a few things about it that are valuable, I think, and one is that we just wanted to see the film in a theater. I think every filmmaker wants that, and I think we knew that the chances of us getting theatrical distribution was pretty low. So there's that, but I think it also, like, it helps you understand how audiences are seeing the movie, like how they're receiving the movie in terms of what they think it is. Starting with festival programmers and then watching it with people is the most valuable thing I think you can have, right? Just like
Mhm.
watching it in a room full of people is first of all an amazing feeling, but also it's like you get a sense of how it's tracking, and do people think this is a comedy? Do they think it's more of sci-fi? Like, what about it are they responding to the most? And then eventually, like Zach said, realizing, okay, like, we're considered a midnight movie. Like, this is the kind of audiences that are responding to it. When it came to distribution, we found a company that has a sci-fi / horror label, and curates or caters to this kind of film. So I think it helped us find our niche, and it helped us, like, understand how people were responding to the movie. So it was valuable
Mhm.
in that sense.
What's
Nice.
the wait time between submission and then finding out that you're actually in a festival?
It kind of varies fest to fest. you know, I feel like the deadline to, for example, for Sundance was like October or something, and then, you know, the festival is January, so it's not that you're not waiting that long. Actually, it's
Okay.
that's a quicker turnaround. And then there's other ones that are longer, and then smaller, more regional ones can get away with, like, I feel like there was some where we were submitting and then supposedly hearing in like a few weeks, you know. So that's if you submit at the tail end of their, you know, if you're a late submit or whatever. But, you know, I would say wise to submit as early as possible. You can't verify this or not, but, you know, they're going to start watching the movies once they're submitting, and at a certain point they're going to start having favorites. And if you're one of the last submissions, you're suddenly having to state a case to swap out a movie they already like, rather than
Yeah.
it being
Yeah.
one of those first ones.
That's a
You
good
know.
point.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
making a
that's
big
fair.
commitment. You know, festivals
If
make
you
a
don't
big
have to.
commitment by programming a feature, because one feature is the same as potentially like a dozen short films, right? So like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, and having like gone through the festival process with shorts, I've found like it's a much, I mean, it's still not easy, but it's much easier, I think, to get your short into a festival, just because it's less of a commitment for the festival. You know, they're putting you in a block with a bunch of other movies. If you're a feature,
Yeah.
they're committing to having like this night is going to be basically just about your movie. So it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
Yeah,
good point. So,
that's awesome.
gentlemen, are you working on anything together or separately? What are we looking at for the future?
Separately for now. We both have scripts
Mhm.
that we have first drafts of, and that we finished first drafts of. We've shared them with each other. We've given each other notes, and we're getting into to new drafts. Right, Zach?
All
So
right.
we're back in the
That's
writing cycle.
good.
Nice.
It's a good
That's
sign.
exciting.
After, I think at the end of a feature like this, like as we described, the desert and all that, I think there have been plenty of opportunities where no one would blame us if we were like, you know, never again.
Yeah.
A really good sign that both of us walked away from one that wasn't all sunshine and roses, and we're still like, no, totally. You know, when's the next one? So
Yeah. No, for
feels good.
sure. It sounds like this was like so worth it. And
Totally. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Intent.
as a viewer, I really think it was worth it. So, you know, I'm glad you guys suffered for the art.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah,
your efforts come through for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean that with all the love.
yeah. It was such a long. I guess the process of it all ended up being close to 4 years from the time we started writing to the time it came out.
Mhm.
So like long enough that, you know, like there's so many different stages, and long enough to now it's like, oh man, like I do miss the writing phase. Like I miss like sharing drafts, and it's been long enough
Mhm.
that like it feels good to kind of be back. I mean, it's like obviously daunting to start with nothing again, but um hopefully you know, you learn something from the first go round, and that those lessons can be you know, applied starting when you write the next one. Like, okay, like for me it was like realizing what I kind of already knew intellectually, but it's like if you write like, okay, Rex falls into a giant hole, it's like you have to actually figure out how to shoot that. Like, do you have a
Yeah.
giant hole? And like,
Mhm.
are you going to be able to do flares, you know? Like if you write
Mhm.
something, like now when I write it, I think harder about like what it's going to mean to actually do that. So
Mhm.
You've got
That's
the
that's
bumps
a
and
great
bruises from your efforts.
yeah, well, yeah,
That is a great point though. That is a really great point though. Like you have to like get it down on paper first, and you know, and now you're like, oh shit, now I actually have to like go find this place that I totally described in detail.
yeah. Like right,
You know, yeah.
like in my new script, you know, there's a dog who's like pretty heavily featured, and every time I write something for the dog, I'm like, am I gonna be able to find a dog? Like, can we get this? Like, they say don't work with dogs or children, but
Children,
the
yeah.
children thing was always a little harsh to me. But I feel like you can work with children, but like I understand animals can be tough. So every time I write something for the dog, I'm like, maybe I should make this like a little simpler. Or do we even need the dog? You know?
Yeah. I
This
don't
is
know.
definitely good advice for some of our listeners, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, but there's always more stories to. That's the beauty of this whole industry, though, right? Whether you're writing a script or even I think writing a novel, if you're writing a book, like either one, there's so many stories I think locked into people's brains, and sometimes like I know Sean and I we're guilty of it. Sometimes like I feel like I've seen any type of story, movie, and then like I'll still come across a story that utterly blows my mind, whether it's visual or just reading. And it's what we live for. And it's kind of why we started this podcast, so we can share it with everybody and, talk to fine gentlemen like yourselves and keep promoting that work that you have and keep circling it around to the community. Because when we started this podcast, the one main thing that we've learned is that everyone is still hungry for more. There's not like, no, I've seen enough movies in my lifetime, I'm good. Like, no, like they want more. They're definitely hungry. So I think it's fair to say, Sean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm really excited to see what you guys have.
For sure.
Thanks.
For sure. You're both incredibly talented.
For sure.
Thank you.
I would like to point everybody to foilthemovie.com, the website, because there, we get, your backstory, the other actor's backstory, what you've done, the award that you won, the other festivals that you've submitted to. Listeners, we've been fairly vague about the plot of the movie, and it's purposeful because I want people to come to this movie and I want them to be surprised like we were. It's not really like, oh, and there's a gigantic twist, but there kind of is.
Yeah, it kind of is.
There are elements that I don't want to spoil at all. So I just want to let our listeners know that this film is worth your time. Please go to foilthemovie.com. You can find out where to watch it. As I said, I had watched it on Apple. And Zach, I'm correct, right? It's Apple and Prime. You have the two right there in the great,
Yes.
fantastic.
Right now, and it's lose the foilmovie.com.
Sorry, forgive me.
Not
Foilmovie.com.
But lose the.
Can't thank you two enough for coming on. We're going to promote the hell out of the movie. We'll put you know what? So we'll have foilthemovie.com in the show notes, of course. But could you guys just let our listeners know where they can find you both? So if you want to give your socials, please, Zach, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, my website is teamzachgreen.com. Zach with a CH. That's Right On is up there. Our short that we did, as you can find on there. A couple of past projects, reels, and I do voiceover stuff. That's on there. And then I'm not the best social media user, but if you want to find me, it's _Reen. So it's like the big green, but the underscore the big green. I don't know. It sounded funny in 11, whatever. That's me.
And I'm at Hey Uncle Dev on Instagram and X. Finally learning to call it X. Yeah. So yeah, this is great. I really enjoyed talking with you, and thanks for watching the movie. And
truly,
yeah, this was great.
Yeah, you guys, we're staying in touch. Now it's like Shannon and I always tell our guests. Now it's like you've joined the mafia, but it's way less violence and a lot more hugs.
Yeah.
There's no escape now. We'll certainly keep you guys in our orbit and use this as a megaphone. Our listener base is growing. We're the mice that roar. But when we believe in something and we believe in foil, we have no problem just promoting the hell out of it. So you use this as a tiny little megaphone.
Yeah. Excited to see what else you guys got coming up too.
Thanks,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right, Shannon, take us out.
All right, Cinners, and that's a cut.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, you just listened to the latest episode of Sinful Cuts. We hope you enjoyed listening to it just as much as we enjoyed making it. If you did, we would be thrilled if you'd head on over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave us a rating and a review. We take them seriously, and we check them all. They go a long way toward not only making the podcast better, but also to get the word out on Sinful Cuts. We're also on YouTube. We would love it if you'd subscribe to us over there. Then you can watch our sweet little faces as we do what we love, talking about horror movies. Until next week, when we're going to have a brand new chiller for you, please put kindness out into the world and get your scare on.